All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about the channel. Second rule of the channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be chasing the dragon for week 6 at this point. The main reason why I am going to do this video tonight, I just got done with the notes for after waivers, is because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get the video done tomorrow for after waivers. It may be Wednesday that I get it done, so I just figure I could get this one out real quick and do the chasing the dragon stuff for you guys that are out there that are interested. So this week with defenses, Thursday night football. Remember, never trust Thursday night football, as we learned this week. The Eagles are going to be going up against Jackson Dart and the Giants, the rookie quarterback. So like the Eagles, if they're available, and again, I don't know who's available in your league. We're going to talk a little bit about that with chasing the dragon. The Broncos going up against the Jets. Justin Fields can, he can be good from a fantasy football perspective both ways on that one. And then let's see some of the other ones that are out there. I don't know how much I'll be chasing the Saints anymore because again, I think that offense may be too conservative. Again, we want negative game scripts for the offense. So sacks lead to turnovers, turnovers lead to touchdowns. That's kind of the idea behind it. So you have to be able to score enough points. And if the Saints are going to drag you down, there may be better options out there. Like Pittsburgh going up against the rookie for the Browns right now, that might be a pretty good role looking out there. The Rams, again, like, when you're wrong, you're wrong, but still a good matchup. Cooper Rush did throw 3 touched or interceptions last week. So, if the Rams are available, if you're really brave, I'll talk about this in after waivers when I get that done. You could go either the Raiders or the Titans at this point against each other. I probably wouldn't be doing that. And Green Bay, if they're available, they're probably going to be the top role this week going up against whoever is going to be the quarterback for the Bengals at this point. But if the Broncos and the Packers are going to be coming off bye, so they're likely going to be available in a lot of leagues. And then also, if you got the Eagles or the Broncos, those would be the ones I'd be mainly focusing on. Steelers also coming off that bye. All right. Some of the other ones, and again, I don't know who's available in your leagues. If you're in any competitive leagues, Rico Dowdle wouldn't be available going out there. I did hear that, and this will be more stuff in after waivers. I did hear that they are expecting at least one more week with Chuba being off. So, yeah, if you need that rental, and more importantly, if he's available, like blocking, it's probably going to be the main thing to be looking at that one. And then if some poor sap in your league dropped Bill, probably should be going after him if he's going to be available out there in fantasy football land. All right, some of the other quarterbacks, 4 touchdown passes for Sam Darnold. I think the offense is still very much going to be run heavy, so chasing touchdowns is a good way to win your league. It's also a good way to lose your league. And then trying to matchup shop maybe Jacksonville, with some of the buys that are out there if you really need that. And then the Rams, though, on the other hand, they may end up having a certain consistency with the passing touchdowns, and they may end up being a little higher volume. So if you missed out on some of the cheat code quarterbacks that win you leagues, and you're just like having to run your replacement level quarterbacks or something like that, yeah, you could be doing that. And then Baltimore's just, they're bad, and that would be the one thing I would say. Like, it may not turn into a shootout, but it may turn into a blowout, and then you can chase your touchdowns there. And then Jacksonville the week after that. So if you're wondering about all that stuff, running backs, and this is probably the main reason why I did this video, is the running backs that could be available this week. So yeah, Kaimani Valdell is the guy that you want to go after for the Chargers. He got the red zone work. Him and Haskins split. I'm going to scroll down to my notes, even though I will talk about this tomorrow or the next day if I get around to it. But right here, there's the Chargers. Kamani Valdell and Haskins split 21% after with Hampton being going on IR with that ankle. The 3 red zone opportunities that occurred all went to Vidal. So that's the long and short of that one. Again, what's a win worth? What's a block worth? The caveat to that is I would not be surprised that it is some type of split backfield. The good stuff, though, is looking like it's going to go to Kamani Vidal. That's going to be the red zone. And receiving work, so that's like the long and short. That's the guy you should be spending on, at least to block for the foreseeable future, and if you need that, like, running back too type of thing going on. I imagine that there's still a possibility they could bring somebody in and just really disrupt that, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, I talked about this before. From a fantasy football perspective, it is all about what is the capital I need to put in to be right or wrong on this one, and then we could look at, like, if you did the right thing and you went after your Rico Dowdle shares, like, there you go, rolling your Rico Dowdle. Like, I got lucky because I had Rico Dowdle and I had Bill in my lineup in my high stakes league. So there you go. It happens sometimes for fantasy football. So, like, I bring this up is with some of the stuff that we're right on, some of the stuff that we're wrong on. Like, there's news that, like, Barkley's got a knee injury. He had 6 total carries in the game. Yeah, So, what's a win worth? Like, what's a chip worth to be right on Will Shipley? Now, I think there's a lot of mouths in that backfield. You're looking at Tank Bigsby. They also have Esteme there, like on the practice squad. AJ Dillon's probably gonna be the dirty work guy, but like if there's a possibility of something, and like anybody last week that would have been sitting there telling you like, oh, Trey Benson's fine, and then he goes like on IR or something like that. Like these do occur, like the Bucky Irving thing where maybe it's only 2 weeks, but if you're speculating ahead of time on the guy having a much more severe injury, like that, what's it worth to you to be right or to be wrong? So like probably not a chasing the dragon, or not an after waivers thing. It's going to be like a chasing the dragon thing. And then Kendre Miller. I did see that Kendre Miller like basically finished the game off for the Saints in this one, and it was a relatively close game overall. So the big thing with Kendre Miller is if they're using him more in the offense, 39% snaps, all the red zone went to Kamara. The main thing that you're buying if he's still available, and that's why I talked about this when I was looking at snap or rostered for sleeper, 27%. Yeah, like you're buying the league winner that Kamara gets shipped someplace. So if you hold on to him, and again, talking about like the Saints may not be quite as bad as we thought they were going to be, at least from the perspective of the on a week to week basis that the offense is so bad that we're rolling defenses against them to get the uptick. Like that's what I would look at it, and like receiving back, all that stuff that we could be dealing with. So like yeah, probably would be priority chasing Dragon if he's not available. I stashed him this week. If you're wondering about that. All right, wide receivers. Talk about like Ryan Flanoy. Like he was a camp hype guy last year. 57% snaps. You got to be like desperate to go after him. 57% snap, 9 for 6 for 114 in this game. And we got to remember like vacated targets have to go someplace, and sometimes they go to like the wide receiver 3, who is basically the number 4 in the offense right now. That's what I would look at it. So like I don't know how consistent that's going to be with the expectation that CeeDee Lamb's going to come back. Kendrick Bourne on the other hand, because of how well he played, you're looking at Jennings potentially coming back, Brock Purdy coming back, and I imagine that Kendrick Bourne is going to stay in the Z, and then Jennings is going to go back to the X. So some of this may be consistent. Like I probably would not be chasing him with your roster unless I really, 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 am desperate. And there's so many wide receivers out there. Like if you're dumpster diving on wide receivers at this point, it's because something went terribly wrong. And I know there are some of those guys out there that like you probably would be chasing it. This could be some consistency to this. I did actually watch the tape on it. Mac Jones is looking very good. It's more so than Kendrick Bourne is looking good. It wasn't anything particularly spectacular. It's a lot of stop routes on zones. And also you're looking at crossers that was going on in the game. Okay, Isaiah Bond, also a guy that I think is probably into chasing the Dragonland instead of after waivers on this one. So I think it was like, let's see, you got to scroll up on this one to go to my Browns notes. 57% snaps in this one, which is not that huge of an uptick, and that's from like 65% snaps in week 3. This is what I was expecting him to do, but the other things that I was not expecting him to do on those 7 targets, 93 air, 2 red zone. So yeah, the reason why I would prioritize this, if you're wondering, is like the air and the red zone opportunities, potentially like a little bit of the snapshot. Like he is going to be down on the pecking order with Jerry Jeudy, and then Cedric Tillman's going to eventually come back, and you're also looking like Njoku and Fannin and all that stuff. But the air yards with the red zone opportunity is going to tell you that if he's in your lineup and you're rolling him as like a wide receiver 3 or flex or something like that, you're going to have a massive spike week. That's what it would tell me after this one week of him being a starter. If you're wondering about that, all right, tight ends, when you're wrong. Dake Tongs probably would downgrade him slightly with Jennings potentially coming back. But again, like if you're chasing tight ends in this one, some of the other ones out there, like the main one I would look at that's really interesting is Theo Johnson with Slayton looking like he has a hamstring at this point. Remember, never trust Thursday Night Football. But with the Neighbors injury and then Slayton and all that stuff, like 82% snaps, 7 for 6 for 33, 2 touchdowns. That may be like the opportunities in the red zone. Like I think Bellinger had a red zone opportunity also in the game, and Bellinger was up to 50% snaps. So that may generally be how the offense is going to function in those 2 tights. And then if he's the guy in the red zone, but you're also looking at the possibility of a unicorn because the vacated opportunity with Neighbors going down, that you can gamble on. Potentially getting that number 1 in offense from a tight end perspective. That's nothing to shake a stick at. Now, Mason Taylor, on the other hand, like 12 for 9 for 67. I didn't even write down the air yards. I was not particularly impressed last week. I'm still not particularly impressed this week. 12 targets, again, nothing to shake a stick at. And, the number 2 attached to an offense, even if it's Justin Fields, and that means like you're going to have like very little consistency on a week to week basis when it comes down to it. Now, AJ Barner is a little different, even though like 7 for 7 for 53 and 2 touchdowns on 80% of snaps. We know who the number 1 is. We probably know who the security blanket is in Cup. We also know like Horton's there. They're going to run the football a lot, but the snap share is mostly going to tell you that he's going to have a certain amount of opportunities. And if they're getting in the red zone and they, like tight ends end up being like very touchdown dependent, and he's getting red zone opportunities like Bob's your uncle. That's how it goes. Like, but you got to be in like deep enough leagues, and like you missed out on Waller last week. I would be going after Theo Johnson at this point because of the Slayton injury with all that stuff going on. And then I think that's about all I got for chasing the dragon this week. And like I said, maybe tomorrow it'll be late, probably later than normal, or I'll have to do it on Wednesday. So yeah, that's about what I got. So yeah,